Hello YouTube. Sorry I haven't been able to make any videos recently, not that any of you really care, but work has been kicking my ass recently and I just haven't had the energy or the time to script or record anything. But here I am. Hi Persephone, yes, La Muerte is fine. I go by that on pretty much every website. Let's look at your major points in the video. You were seeing a psychologist for depression, so many if not all of your symptoms of hunger can be explained by depression. In depression, nothing satisfies you, and that may well include food. It still doesn't point towards anything supernatural. These symptoms also include a lower body temperature, I might add. And here's why. When you're depressed, you're often lethargic. Blood pressure slows down, heat's not being transferred through your body effectively, and where the hell am I here? And as a result, you have even less physical energy to do anything, and the cycle continues. I personally have a slightly lower than usual body temperature, especially in my extremities, all the time. People always tell me how cold my hands are, nothing special. It's probably because I have prehypertension and essentially no body fat, so I lose body heat really easily. It doesn't really mean that I'm low on energy, it means I'm in poor health. You had dreams about feeding on people and remember a few times where they knew something had happened, so they'd showed signs that you fed on them. But how many times did you have those dreams and nothing evidently happened as a result? We often ignore the times that are unremarkable and remember every coincidence. But when all is compared, rarely is there any notable pattern at all. This can also apply to the times where you believed you fed on people and they showed no signs of it. How often were you in the company of others and nothing notable happened? Another important point you made was about they weren't all that remarkable at the time. You then wanted external confirmation, but from the sound of it, that's the exact opposite of what you got. Each one of them said something different about your energy, and that immediately sends up red flags. If there was something going on, and these people were able to sense energy, then there should be some sort of, they all should have something in common. But they only mentioned your different energy after you asked them about it. And the fellow who said he felt your energy before you even arrived most likely didn't say anything about it until you showed up. Whether each and every one of these people were deluding themselves or deliberately lying is of no consequence, because when all is said and done, it doesn't matter. None of it objectively points to anything special. Everyone wants to feel important, even if it's only to themselves, so they're easily able to make themselves believe they're capable of more than they really are. You then return to your old point after remarking that each of your friends' reactions could be tacked on to preconceived expectations, and return to the other experiences that, again, couldn't have been all that remarkable in the first place. So you still don't really have any genuine objective evidence that you're even a psychic vampire. But on to my next point. Now about the psychic vampire literature. Again, I return to my old points about med school syndrome. Someone at some point made up the idea of a psychic vampire. I mean, it's inevitable. The word only appeared in literature sometime in the 20th century, and likely because someone was suffering depression, was already involved in magic and the supernatural, and came upon this idea of drawing energy from somewhere else. Depression symptoms don't change over time in different individuals, which is why they can be used to diagnose patients. Neither do other medical or psychological conditions. If one person associates these symptoms with psychic vampirism and tells others about it, it becomes established that these are the symptoms, and if you have them, you're probably a psychic vampire. Now, everyone who suffers from depression, for example, and reads these descriptions is then liable to believe that they are also vampires. The point I'm getting at is just because someone else says these are symptoms of psychic vampirism doesn't make it any more verifiable than someone claiming they have a personal relationship with Jesus because such and such and the Bible supposedly told them how. Delusion and the placebo effect are powerful, as I said, and aren't necessarily indicative of mental illness, just wishful thinking. You related an experience with a van driver where you fed on him and the top of his head itched. By this point, you had obviously made the conscious decision that you were at least displaying vampiric tendencies, if not a psychic vampire already. Every coincidence afterward would be perceived as corroborating evidence. Though a man scratching his head while you felt like you were feeding off of him really isn't anything remarkable either. The story of your coworker could also be a coincidence. You were already looking for them anyway. And a side note about personal anecdotes, they aren't reliable. They can never be verified or examined because no one's memory is perfect. There is no recorded objective data, and for all I know, you could be lying, though I wouldn't go that far. I'll refer you to a video in the sidebar for more information on the subject. You then go on to talk about Occam's razor. Your experiences as described don't really sound very impressive, nor does it sound like anything more than psychosomatic. You've already seen a professional for depression, which accounts for much of your feelings, and the other accounts you were skeptical of already. You likely didn't believe them to be evidence until after you had made the conscious decision that you were something different. You say you sought vampirism as the simplest explanation, but here's the problem. It has never been proven, or even observed under controlled conditions, for that matter, that psychic vampirism, or the supernatural, even exist. You cannot say that something that has never been observed is natural. To claim that it must be true because many cultures around the world believe it in some form is to commit a fallacy ad populum. Fact isn't determined by majority consensus. Many cultures believed that the earth was flat, held up by a giant turtle, that the constellations were real celestial beings, that the entire world was flooded at some point, that mankind was created by some divine entity rather than evolving, and on, and on, and on. We already know these to be false, even though some individuals who are entirely resistant to reality still hold on to such nonsense. The important thing is that jumping to the conclusion that an entirely unconfirmed condition is the simplest explanation for a phenomenon that has a number of natural explanations, no, vampirism is not natural, by definition, is worse than a false dichotomy of the God of the Gaps fallacy. Even if no natural explanation can explain a phenomenon, it doesn't make an unconfirmed assertion true. It makes the phenomenon unexplained. End of story. Yet another point, you said that both when you actively feed on people and when you aren't feeding on them, they still claim that you're feeding from them. Does this not sound suspicious to you? Lastly, logic and testing cannot be applied to the paranormal. First of all, because all attempts in the past have either shown no results or were inconclusive. Never has anything paranormal ever resisted scrutiny. Again, I point to the James Randi $1 Million Challenge. If the paranormal is so widespread and easy to determine and demonstrate, then why has no one ever been able to demonstrate it? Everyone says they can do it, but when it comes down to controlled testing, they fail every time. By now, it would be a waste of time and money to study paranormal phenomena when there are infinitely more important things to focus on. Personally, I think physics is more interesting, even if not more important. Personally, I think physics is more interesting and more important than metaphysics. Never mind. But anyways, enjoy your day. Hope to hear back from you sometime soon.